An American manga graphic novel series I'll never forget is Peach Fuzz. It was kind of like those American cartoons that aren't anime but are anime-ish enough that you're a little confused on how to define them. I once saw a user use the term hamburger anime. I like that. Well, I'm here to remind people of my first ever hamburger manga about friendship, identity through adversity, and ferrets. I ran a poll recently on my Instagram because I wanted to see if people remembered this little series and had nostalgic love for it like I did, and the results were less than. We the people are allowing society to forget about Peach Fuzz. We can't let this happen. We're losing recipes. On the outside, this series may just seem like a cutesy throwaway story, but there's more to Peach Fuzz than meets the eye. And its inception alone carries quite a bit of history of the early 2000s manga industry in America. In the early 2000s, Tokyopop was known as a licensing giant for distributing manga to the West. At a time when Japanese media wasn't easily accessible, they played a huge role in introducing a Western audience to a variety of big name and particularly female-geared publications like Fruits Basket, Peach Girl, Tokyo Mew Mew, Cardcaptor Sakura, and Sailor Moon. Its big footprint in the Western manga world led Tokyopop to launch their own talent competition in 2002 called the Rising Stars of Manga. This would subsequently become a yearly contest where aspiring comic artists and writers of all ages were given a chance to submit 15 to 20 pages of their original work. The top 10 winners, chosen by Tokyopop staff, would have their works published into a Rising Stars of Manga anthology of the same name, along with a $1,000 cash prize. What a huge opportunity this was for Western artists seeking to break into the world of manga, and a well-known company holding these contests made it all the more enticing. The first year saw over 500 entries. Dang. The first competition success was enough for Tokyopop to consider holding it for another year, where in 2003 saw an entry starring a young girl and her adventures with her pet ferret, submitted by Lindsay Cibos, called Peach Fuzz. When it came to the conception of Peach Fuzz itself, Lindsay said,
"Peach Fuzz is a story I've been thinking around for a while now. It's a comedy about a girl and her pet ferret, and all of the misunderstandings that can arise between people and their pets. I thought it would work well as a story if I could just get it in front of the right audience."
Already hosting a long list of shonen and shoujo manga publications, the Tokyopop readers were the perfect audience to introduce her story to. And after winning the grand prize for the second Rising Stars of Manga competition, Lindsay found herself signing a book deal with Tokyopop to turn Peach Fuzz into its own multi-volume manga series. While also appearing in American Sunday newspaper comic strips, Peach Fuzz saw its first volume publication release on January 11th, 2005. The same year I would find it at my school's Scholastic Book Fair. Do you remember the Scholastic Book Fair? Oh my god. I was a tiny 3rd grader weeb in training, just getting into anime outside of Pokemon, and this cover was cute enough to pique my interest. Luckily, I fell in love with it. I owned the first 2 volumes and never read the 3rd and final volume until making this video, and boy do I have thoughts, because the 3rd volume leaves me feeling confused, to say the least. But first, let's explore the enchanting beginnings of Peach Fuzz. Peach Fuzz follows the story of a 9-year-old girl named Amanda and her journey after she adopts a small baby ferret from a local rescue. Peach isn't just any ferret though, she's actually a princess. Or at least she thinks she is. The funny thing about Peach is that more than being an actual princess, she seems to have more of a princess complex. She lives in her own head about who she is and her status, and treats the world around her accordingly. Honestly, she's kinda real for that. This isn't treated as a character flaw or anything, but it makes a lot of the jokes and happenings in the story even more funny. Her internalized princesshood is looked at more critically in Volume 3, which we'll get to. Volume 1 starts off with Amanda and her mom arriving at the local animal rescue. Amanda is absolutely determined to get a cool exotic pet that she can show off to her classmates. Nothing like the boring cats and dogs that are just so typical. Sorry, Momo. Her eyes land on the ferret cage and she is absolutely taken. They're like cute little elongated mice. Amanda's mom is immediately skeptical after learning from the clerk that baby ferrets like to bite. Too bad Amanda's already dead set on getting a ferret that happened to be too asleep to bite her. They make a deal that if it bites even just once, she has to bring it back. Not to already make comments, but upon rereading the intro, I really feel like Amanda and her mom should have done more research on and asked more questions about ferrets in general. It would have saved them from a lot of the troubles they'd soon experience. On the way home, Amanda comes up with a name for the furry little critter, Peach. Did this manga subconsciously impact me? It's in the car on the way home that Peach finally begins to wake up. Obviously confused and unsure of where she is now, Peach tries to recount her last memories, and we soon learn that the world from Peach's point of view is far different from the typical. As in, the ferret cage at the rescue was Ferretland, she was the princess, the other ferrets were her royal servants, and the hands of humans reaching into their cage were monsters known as the Handra. I can't. This is so funny. The way Peach sees the world around her makes her point of view pages that much funnier, but also makes the story more interesting. I think as a kid I didn't appreciate the humor in this as much as I do now that I'm an adult. The next day, Amanda is so excited for her two best friends to come over so she can show off her new pet Peach. Pet Peach. We meet the fashionable and popular Kim and the eccentric and athletic Mimi. What ensues during this meetup is, well, nothing short of cringe. They hold Peach incorrectly, toss her in the air, roll her around like pizza dough. Why didn't anyone teach these kids about animal safety? They are only kids though, so it's not really their fault that they weren't supervised. But gosh, it's just hard to watch. There's really no wonder why Peach ends up biting Amanda's hand, or Handra, in retaliation. This only causes Amanda to drop Peach out of shock. Peach seems okay enough to hobble to her cage, but the girls are left feeling guilty. This guilt becomes even greater when Amanda wakes up the next day and Peach won't move. It's been less than 24 hours. How is the titular character dead already? It is kind of funny how much Amanda's mom, Megan, is getting annoyed through all of this. She's like, I did not just spend $120 on a malfunctioned ferret. Being a single parent to Amanda, her mom is very frugal about money and works hard in her job to provide for her daughter. This often leads her to being irritable and lacking patience with Amanda, but she tries her absolute best to be an understanding mother. Meanwhile, in Peach World, because of course she was just asleep and not dead, she jumps out of her literal fish tank of a cage to explore her new surroundings. This princess is so refined, even bugs are her royal subjects. She's working with what she's got. Amanda and her mom find Peach making a mess in an off-limits room, and back to the pet store they go to get a cage better than an open fish tank. Miss Keller can't catch a break. It's here that we learn where Peach's princess complex comes from. Princess is something that her mother, Ferret, always used to call her when she was young. Now, she only has a vague memory of her mother, and she clings on to this nickname as part of her identity. It's not discussed what happened to Peach's mother, but she was likely just adopted out once her kits were weaned from her. This is actually kind of sad, and adds more depth to Peach as a character than was really expected from a story like this. Later on, we get a look into what Amanda's social life is like at school, and we have the pleasure of meeting her school bully, Phil. I swear this series kind of gives traumatic flashbacks. Can we also take note on how the teacher doesn't do much to stop it? That'll be important later. With Amanda dropping her new plushie Phil made fun of into Peach's cage, this is the perfect chance for Peach to recruit another subordinate. Inside, we can now see the inner workings of this prisoner's chamber Peach has been locked up in. The walls made of stone, the water bottle nothing but a leaky crevice. Gotta love her overactive imagination. It's what causes her to become such good friends with Mr. Fuzzy without him even having to say a word. Amanda's friends come over once more, and to cheer her up, they start playing with Peach by forcing her to fight against stuffed animals. Someone please teach these kids how to play with pets. I'm begging you. Poor Peach. From her point of view, the Handra monsters are forcing her to duel against fierce competitors. These battle pages are so funny. Peach sees a wild grizzly bear attacking her in the thick of the forest, but it winds up being a little teddy bear with some crayons fallen on it. She is a well-seasoned fighter. Things come to a head when the Handra force her to duel against her beloved Mr. Fuzzy. The betrayal. The disgust. The Handra making her take down her own kin? How could they? This stirs Peach up so significantly that she lashes out on the fierce monster, aka Amanda's finger. Amanda tries to hide it, but nothing gets by Miss Keller. Back to the pet store they go. It's funny, but also kind of accurate how often first-time pet owners find themselves back at the vet or the pet store. I know from experience. After giving them a few disciplinary options that neither Amanda nor her mother were willing to do, the clerk manages to sell the Kellers yet another piece of ferret merchandise, a bitter bite spray. One taste and Peach will never want to bite their hands again. And Amanda's chance to test this product out comes pretty soon, as Peach is still riled up from their last encounter. Amanda can't even change out Peach's litter box without her lunging at her Handra fingers. Home alone with a now seemingly crazed ferret, Amanda's left with no choice but to face her fears and try to calm Peach down. Luckily, the bitter bite spray works in deterring Peach from biting, but it's Amanda scruffing her neck like the clerk taught her that causes Peach to relax. It's just like what Peach's mother used to do, and this allows Peach's view of the Handra to soften. Peach is still a little skeptical, but this might at least be the start of a new friendship. The first volume is endearing and a pretty good setup story. It's written as though it could end right here, but also leaves room for more adventures to come. The highlights are definitely seeing how Peach interacts with the world from her view and how much that differs from reality. And as a kid, Amanda was a protagonist I could decently relate to. Overall, 9-year-old me loved it, which is why I was so excited to see a second volume announced in the back of the manga. And in my opinion, this one is the best and most well-rounded one of the three by far. Peach Fuzz Volume 2 was released on bookstore shelves on October 10th, 2006. As a 5th grader with access to Toonami, the manga section at Barnes & Noble, and hundreds of AMVs on YouTube, I was well into my weeb years at this point, so I was anticipating the release of this volume. While Volume 1 was a nice introduction to Amanda, Volume 2 gives us a much closer look at her personal struggles at school, her relationship with her friends, and her future aspirations of being a zookeeper. She says needles and stuff freak her out too much to be a vet, and girl, I can't say I blame you. Things also get much more interesting for Peach as she begins to deal with even more internal struggles on her being a princess and her search for a worthy prince. I love this volume. Let's get into it. Volume 2 begins with Amanda fantasizing about bringing Peach into school for show and tell. We get details on Amanda not just being unpopular, but being rather harshly bullied. These pages used to have me feeling so bad for Amanda as a kid. Now looking at it in retrospect as an adult, a lot of things in this volume just feel a little too familiar. Traumatic school experiences aside, the next day, Amanda can't wait to bring Peach into school in her little carrier. As a theme carried on from the first volume, Amanda believes that the kids will see just how cool and exotic of a pet Peach is and will therefore want to be her friend. Meanwhile, Peach is in her own world in disbelief of how the now kind Handra lured her into this prison carriage. Ah, never change Peach. But of course, no pets are allowed on the bus, and wait, why is the bus driver Jamaican? The dialogue. I can't. Being half Jamaican myself, this small random detail that I forgot made me burst out laughing. And Amanda being so apologetic to her mom for now having to bring her to school made me feel so bad. If Amanda was portrayed at all as bratty in Volume 1, this volume just puts you completely on her side. While waiting for her mom to get ready, we see Amanda watching her favorite show, Princesses and Pegasuses. Frequently mentioned, the episode she's watching will largely mirror the struggles Amanda endures throughout this volume, as the princess doesn't believe she'll be accepted by the other princesses unless she brings her magical apples with her. Love the detail of her watching a girly magical show though. We do a lot of that around here. At the school, we meet a lot of Amanda's classmates for the first time. We get the class bullies Phil and Tim, their habitual victims, the kid who tries to cozy up to the bullies, the moderately mean girls. It's a lot to take in. Meanwhile, their teachers outside of the room like, the kids sound so happy in there. Mind you, there were like 3 punishable offenses that occurred within the span of 5 minutes. Realism. Luckily, Peach is a hit during show and tell. The kids love her, and Amanda is cautious making sure Peach is okay during this multi-Handra attack. In fact, Peach is so popular that Amanda's trendy best friend Kim tells her that she's going to get one for herself. Awesome, I think. I'm sure you've noticed, but the girl on the cover of this volume is in fact Kim. And while the story continues to follow Amanda as the protagonist, a lot of the focus shifts to her friendship with Kim and what happens when circumstances like this get between them. In other news, Phil and Tim's hamsters aren't as big of a hit at show and tell, and so they begin to plot their revenge against the girl who stole their thunder. Oh my god, why does this kid have a knife? Where are his parents? Are they aware they're currently raising a little demon? Clearly not. What is going on here? This story just took a dark turn. Moving on. Kim invites Amanda and Peach over to introduce them to her new ferret, Pavarotti. That was fast. They try to play pretend romance with them, and Peach is not having it. But Pavarotti seems pretty cool overall, until he opens his mouth, of course. It turns out he's an entertainer extraordinaire with quite a pompous attitude. What I love is how he seems to live in a world of his own, where his Handra are called handlers, and they serve him, and his prisoner's cage is actually his trailer. Gosh, I am so amused by these ferrets. When Pavarotti continues to edge Peach on, telling her she's not refined enough to be a princess, he's pretty much attacking Peach's entire image of herself. It's no wonder Peach lunges at him. Deserve. Meanwhile, since Kim is super into fashion and designing clothes, the two of them are brainstorming what outfit they should make for Amanda so her classmates can like her. And they settle on making a ferret costume. Not to be the devil's advocate here, but I don't know where they were going with this. But since Amanda was pretty upset that her classmates seemed to care more about Peach than her after show and tell, she might have figured this would get her the attention she was wanting. The kids are more so confused than they are supportive, but at least Kim is excited about her creation. Things go south when Phil and Tim get a look at Amanda's ferret look, and the bullying ensues. These kids are terrible. Their teacher, Mr. Crabtree, threatens them with detention, but it's not really effective since the two thrive on punishment. And that doesn't stop Phil and Tim from organizing a takedown of Amanda by spreading rumors about her during recess. How her rich mom bought Peach for her, how she can do whatever she wants and she's a teacher's pet, and trying to turn Kim's group of friends against her for being besties with Amanda. It all comes to a head when the kids gang up on Amanda on the playground. And this is so hard to watch. When the kids start attacking Kim along with Amanda, she doesn't back her friend. She says that she made the outfit because she felt sorry for her. Excuse me? Kim visibly feels bad after saying these things, but my god. Peer pressure is tough to deal with, especially at such a young age, but Kim is such a terrible friend here. I hate that it happens. Things get worse the next day when the entire class of kids continue to bully Amanda, and Kim won't even acknowledge her enough to lend her a pencil during their test. I am so upset on Amanda's behalf. Kim is clearly going through her own struggles with the importance of friendship over popularity. She even considers selling Pavarotti after what happened because ferrets aren't popular anymore. It's really relieving as a reader when she realizes how ridiculous she's being and resolves to make up with Amanda the next day. On a lighter note, but also a struggle in her own right, Peach is still having an existential crisis, trying to figure out how she can impress her future prince. She recruits a legion of royal servants, aka Amanda's plushies, and brainstorms ways to continue building this unfinished castle she's been left with. Peach's goal becomes to venture out past the mysterious door of Amanda's room and gather some worthy treasures, which leads to Peach falling into Amanda's backpack before school. But Peach's breach goes by unnoticed, especially when there are bigger fish to fry in the classroom. One of the kids' pet snake from Show and Tell earlier in the week ends up trying to eat one of Phil's hamsters. Things are getting crazy in here. Trying to be some semblance of a hero, Tim pulls out his machete to try and sever the snake's head, and thank God Mr. Crabtree finally sees this kid in action. That feeling when it takes a dude bringing a knife to school to resort to more intense punishment. This, however, doesn't stop the fact that the snake is still trying to eat this hamster. As soon as Amanda herself volunteers to save the little hamster, in an unexpected turn of events, Peach lunges at the snake, who she's mistaken to be Mr. Snake from Amanda's slew of plushies, and removes it from the scene to discipline him for leaving his post. Sometimes, delusion saves lives. But all is well, and Amanda and Peach are now heroes. The volume closes with Amanda and her new friends, including Kim, watching the conclusion to Princesses and Pegasuses in Amanda's living room, with the princess undergoing a magical friendship transformation. I always knew you were a real one, Amanda. And realizing she never needed the magic apples to impress her friends all along. The light inside of her was bright enough already. And Peach, well, Peach is still longing for her perfect prince, wondering when she'll feel complete. This volume is a ride, to say the least. Its conflicts are super realistic for the character's age group, and now it honestly feels like looking into a window of the past when reading it. Also a side note, but I just find it so funny that this quiet girl in Amanda's class who wants to be friends with her is just shy of professing her love to Amanda, and she doesn't really notice her much until the end. It's all so cute, and the story finds a good resolution. Peach largely serves as a bit of comic relief from the heavy situation Amanda's dealing with, and it works. I appreciate her segments way more now than I did when I was younger. Even the differences in dialogue font between Peach, Pavarotti, and the humans is hilarious. Tell me why Pavarotti's is that "I will protect you" font. Goofy. Maybe lacking resolution when it comes to Peach's story, it does leave a lot to be desired for our fuzzy ferret friend. Will she ever meet her prince? And does an environment that she didn't choose really define who she is in being a princess? I don't know, guys, I'm rooting for the delusion. But with the third and final volume, I'm not sure if I'd say that there's much to root for. Volume 3 released on December 11th, 2007. I always wanted to see what happened next, but I somehow never got my hands on this volume as a kid. It must not have been a top priority during my Jonas Brothers obsession, but I got to fulfill my wishes and read it for this video. The volume begins with Amanda stressing about Peach's more destructive behavior recently. By the suggestion of her second friend, who we've yet to focus on, Mimi Santini, Amanda tries convincing her mom that another ferret friend will aid in Peach's boredom. After some back and forth and a chat with the infamously persuasive clerk, Amanda settles on the cutest, dopiest looking ferret in this whole story. There's not a thought behind those eyes. I love him already. Something else I really love is seeing how much Amanda has improved as a pet owner over the course of these 3 volumes. She recognizes the green waste in the pet store litter boxes as a sign of poor nutrition, and is overall much more gentle with the ferrets compared to her first visit to the pet store in volume 1. It's so sweet. Driving home, they come up with the name Edwin for the little guy, named after a man from Miss Keller's romance novels. I'm not mad at it. And Peach thinks her moment has come. Finally, the prophecy, the prince. Until she gets a closer view of just how dopey he looks. He's just a silly little guy. But she still believes he must be her prince, and continues to refer to him as such. Edwin is confused. Since it seems like ferrets all live in their own little worlds in this manga series, Edwin's view of the world doesn't align with Peach's. He's really just here to roll around, eat snacks, and play. Peach may think he's a prince, but I'll call him a king for that. But his lack of elegance and grace only makes Peach dislike him more. Things aren't starting off on great terms. Back to the human concerns, Amanda's off to visit Mimi's home for the first time. Amanda's mom has kept her from going to Mimi's side of town for some time, and the reason seems to be due to Miss Keller's opinions on where her family lives and the beliefs they practice. Amanda and her mom actually have a small tiff over this. This is actually a really interesting storyline to have been inserted in a manga about ferrets? I'm impressed. Upon arriving, Amanda does seem quite off-put by the run-down nature of the apartment complex Mimi lives in, but she does her best to be polite and not mention anything about it. We get to meet Mimi's ferrets, and oh my god, one of them is already dead.
Already? But they're literally on the front cover! I am shocked by this information.
Well, the two that are alive are albino ferrets. Peach isn't too sure what to think of them upon meeting them, and they don't make a great first impression either by saying their kingdom is haunted and their dead brother was the lucky one who got out. Mimi's not too worried about the death of her other ferret, given the religious beliefs of her family. They're Mushinites and claim that the cycle of shrooms ensures that when living beings die, their bodies become soil for new life to grow from. I mean, she's not wrong, but what is going on in this town for there to be a mushroom religion? I'm crying at the socioeconomic commentary this volume is providing right now. The next day, Amanda brings Mimi and her no longer living ferret to the pet store clerk because she overheard him and her mother talking about how the store fixes ferrets.
Oh, this is golden.
The clerk is, of course, unable to do anything, but they have the spirit. With Peach and Edwin still in tow in Amanda's carrier, the two end up conversing with some of the ferrets still at the pet store. And they are not kind. They tease Peach and prod Edwin into recounting a very traumatic experience of his. He recounts his aggressor as them, which, as you can guess by our other ferrets, are actually human hands, and says they poked, prodded, and changed him inside. Though what Edwin is describing is actually his neutering procedure, I kind of felt uncomfortable during this scene. I don't know. The way it's written feels like it could be an allegory for something else, and I wasn't sure what to think after reading these panels, but I won't dwell on it for any longer. The next day, Peach is even more fed up with Edwin than before. I don't know how she can stay mad at a face like this. My baby, for real. Team Edwin. But things take a turn for the worst when Edwin is injured when following Peach, trying to climb up a tower of books. This Lion King-ass scene. No, but really, it's so sad to see Edwin hurt. Luckily, Amanda and her mom are home and get him to the animal clinic in time, but Peach is left alone feeling guilty for how she's treated him. A concern gone unnoticed is how weak and sweaty Peach has been through all of this. Edwin comes back alright with a bandage around his paw, but the next day, Peach is doing far worse than before. Amanda's a little concerned, and after being told about the signs of a sickly ferret from Mimi, Amanda rushes home to Peach and off to the vet we go! Again! I know Miss Keller is loving this. I kid, but Amanda's mom truly has a soft spot for these ferrets too, and hates to see them suffering. The vet prescribes Peach with some medicine for her symptoms, and Peach is extremely thankful to the Handra for nursing her to health through all of this. The response from both Handra and Edwin to her illness make Peach realize that she's quite grateful to be in an environment with beings who care about her. Amanda and Peach's relationship started out rough, but they learned over time how to handle each other. Edwin is goofy and clumsy, but well-intentioned. Peach's story comes to a head after she recovers and realizes that her kingdom was looted while she was sick. Her treasure is now gone. Amanda probably just cleaned out the cage. But anyway, Edwin questions why all of this princess stuff is so important to her in the first place, and tries to tell Peach that he's not the prince she thinks he is. Peach doesn't take any of this quite well, but is open to his advances when he tells her that she's the first ferret that ever spoke to him kindly. She finally asks him his name at the very end of the volume, and we get this font again. They exchange a little ferret peck, and the two look towards a comfortable future in rebuilding the castle and being happy with the ordinary life they currently live. And it ends. What?
Is that it?
I know I might have summarized it quite concisely, but I was really expecting there to be more after this scene, especially with about 28 more pages, which turned out to be extras. The end of this volume is cool though, as it provides some additional context on characters, locations, and even has a Peach Fuzz fan art section. There's also a little in memoriam section for Lindsay Cibos and Jared Hodges' own pet ferret that passed away a year before this volume was published. R.I.P. Elf. I just felt kind of unsatisfied at the end. I feel like they could have explored even more of Peach's character in the last volume, and the final scene and resolution felt a bit rushed. Additionally, this volume didn't have much of a continuous narrative among the humans, something that made the first 2 volumes more compelling overall. This one felt a bit all over the place, with Peach's story being the more consistent. But it's likely that time and page number constraints were set up by Tokyopop, and I'm sure the 2 writers did the most with what they were given. Lindsay Cibos confirmed in 2008 that Tokyopop unfortunately passed on her proposal for a 4th volume, so there was definitely intent to expand on the story. Although I can't really assume the working relationship Lindsay Cibos and Jared Hodges had with Tokyopop, Lindsay's old DeviantArt page that she once used to give fans updates does give us some insight. For instance, in 2005, after the release of the first Peach Fuzz volume, Tokyopop released a completely casted audio drama of the manga without ever consulting Lindsay or Jared about it. Huh? I know Tokyopop technically had the rights to the manga at that point, but geez. The series' own creators had no say in the voice casting and production of a project based on the characters they made? This completely rubs me the wrong way. On an unrelated note, but related to Lindsay Cibos' DeviantArt page, look at this concept art she made of magical girl Peach Fuzz. The world needs this. Tokyopop isn't without business practice controversy in general, with many testimonies coming from employees and manga artists who once worked with the company. While Tokyopop was able to restructure themselves for a reopening in 2018, even after closing down 7 years earlier, there is still a history of drama behind the name. I won't go into too much detail as I want to focus more on Peach Fuzz's story rather than Tokyopop. I'll include an interesting YouTube video in the description if you're interested by Red Bard, who speaks about it at length. Even though this 3rd and final volume left much to be desired, it did give me a new character that I love in Edwin. Look at him. What a gem. Overall, I'm glad I could revisit and complete the series. It's a quick short read, and it's super cute. Unfortunately, the books are out of print and unable to be bought through retail, but can still be found on secondhand sites and I'm sure at used bookstores. I got mine on Mercari. It's a great gateway series, and I'm sure it helped introduce other kids to the world of manga and Japanese media at the time it was released. My first manga were actually a couple of volumes of Dragon Ball Z. I had a lot of contrasting interests as a kid, but I found Peach Fuzz at around the same time, and I'm so happy I did. Tell me your thoughts on this series. Did you ever read it? Or is this your first time ever hearing about it? I'm currently working on a couple of bigger videos, so my upload schedule isn't weekly at the moment. But now that I'm focusing more on the quality of my videos, I'm even more excited to share with you what I've been working on. If you like magical and nostalgic content like this, I'm also on Instagram. But until next time, I'll see you in my dreams. Bye, friend.